Thanks, Las Count Corla. And can I just also add my condolences to the family of Christy Dignam, as Bree did. Christy was a legend in music, a beautiful singer. He was a working class hero, and his songs will be sung, I suspect, for a long time, if not forever, and he will be greatly missed, but his legacy will live on. I think, first of all, it probably would surprise, in terms of our bill, it would probably surprise a lot of people out there that we have a situation where there is such thing as a sub-minimum wage. The fact that minimum wage, which is now $11.30, which is not a livable income, in my view, for even those that get the minimum wage, when you consider the absolutely shocking cost of living and accommodation and housing crisis that we have, the extortionate levels of rents, house prices, the shocking increases that we've seen in energy prices and the price of food, and across the board in the cost of living over the last 2 years, even the minimum wage itself is far short of an acceptable income for working people, and in reality leaves 150,000 people who have to exist in that wage as the working poor. So that in and of itself is unacceptable and needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency. And in our view, we should be moving immediately to the introduction of a living wage, at least to the $13.10 that is established as a living wage. But as Breed has said, we think we need to go further, and really, in this day and age, and given the cost of living crisis and the cost of accommodation and housing for people, that we should be talking about at least €15. But the idea that, against the background of an already shockingly inadequate minimum wage, that people who are 19, 18 or under 18 are getting paid less than this pathetic minimum wage is really shocking, and something that I suspect most people don't know about, and we're keen to highlight it because I think anybody who becomes aware of this would say it is an absolute outrage. That if you're 19, you're getting €10.17 an hour rather than the $11.30. If you're 18, you're getting €9.04. And worst of all, if you're under 18, you're getting €7.91. Absolutely shocking. And it violates the basic principle that there should be equal pay for equal work. That's a basic principle. I strongly suspect we are actually violating the human rights of young people in expecting them to work for a lesser amount of pay for doing the same work as people who simply happen to be older than them and get paid more on the basis of age. It's basic discrimination, and it is insulting to young people for the work that they do. The suggestion, or the sort of narrative that you hear for those who try and defend the status quo, that somehow young people don't really need to be paid the same, or that somehow it's just pocket money, again just shows a complete lack of awareness and understanding about the realities that young people face. As Jonathan Hogan of Mandate pointed out earlier this year in response to that kind of narrative, the reality is that many, many young people, their earnings, their income are absolutely crucial for the family income, to help often low-income families to basically pay the bills, to pay the rent and to pay the bills. But even beyond that, as representatives of the student union movement and the secondary school student union, and I should just welcome many of those groups into the gallery and make the Minister aware that there are a lot of people here who have an interest in this bill and are supporting it, and indeed have been independently campaigning on this issue even before we brought the bill to the House. So I'd like to just welcome representatives of Mandate Trade Union, representatives of UCD Students' Union, of USI, of the Irish Secondary School Students' Union, also supporting the bill, the Unite Trade Union, the ICTU Youth Committee. We also were joined by representatives of Sinn Féin on the protests this morning, the National Youth Council, and many, many others. I hope I haven't left anybody out and all that, but I want to thank them for their support and for their campaigning on this issue. But as Molly Greeno, who I think is in the gallery today, pointed out, when she was asked about this, she said, UCD Students' Union wants to see an immediate end to the exploitation of young workers under the age of 20. This is a form of discrimination that just compounds things for students working long hours just to put themselves through college. Abolishing sub-minimum wages for workers under 20 is only fair. And that is absolutely true, Minister. Students are struggling at the moment. They are struggling with the cost of living crisis. The rents are unaffordable. They are being hit disproportionately with the cost of living crisis, with the rising food prices, the rising cost of energy, and all the other cost of living increases that have hit ordinary working people and young people over the last 2 years in particular. And of course, it's worth saying that in many of the areas where younger people would work and are having to put up with these discriminatory levels of pay, we have also seen, as part of a more general phenomenon during the cost of living crisis, massive profits, in many cases, being made, for example, by the big supermarket chains. The cost of living crisis has not been a lose-lose situation for everybody in this country. The reality is that while workers have lost, in real terms, huge amounts of their income because of cost of living increases and are being crucified with those cost of living increases, we've seen profits shoot up for many of the big corporations, for many of the supermarket chains, and so on. So what we're actually seeing with the cost of living crisis is a redistribution of wealth in favour of big business and at the expense of working people, and young people in this case disproportionately suffering the cost of those cost of living increases. And I note that the Taoiseach at the National Economic Dialogue actually identified and highlighted the concern about low pay and acknowledged the huge hit that working people have taken in terms of their income because of the cost of living crisis. So I'm very interested to see what the government is going to say to this bill. Are you going to let it pass? Because there is absolutely no justification for not eliminating this discrimination and ensuring that young workers are treated with respect and at least given access to the minimum wage, which as we've said, is already shockingly inadequate. And even more so when you consider the labour shortages that we are now suffering in this country. In almost every area, we are seeing the unprecedented phenomena of advertisements appearing all over the country saying workers wanted for this, workers wanted for that, shortages in every area of the economy. And I suspect, I haven't seen the latest CSO figures on immigration, but I suspect we are going to see a very significant increase in the number of young people who are leaving, which was already running at about 45 to 50,000 people over the last number of years. But I suspect, as we see the new figures come in, we're going to see a lot more young people are leaving. Now, we need those young people to stay. And the government needs to understand that. They have to be encouraged to stay, and that means showing them some respect and giving them some prospect that the incomes they will earn will allow them to actually be able to put a roof over their head and live a decent and dignified income, allow them to survive in a dignified and decent way when they're trying to go through education. So, to my mind, there would be no justification for the government opposing this bill, and indeed, it seems to me it is an absolute obligation on this government to support the passage of this bill and to ensure it is brought into law as quickly as possible as part of a more general increase in wages and income for workers in this country to match the cost of living crisis that people are facing.